I'm just going to explain a little bit of how this machine works. This machine is basically split into two sections. One, what we call the electronics, which is everything you see here, and then we have the glassware. The glassware is usually the more delicate part of the instrument. The instrument itself usually never has any issues, hardware-wise, electronic-wise. But the electrodes, some of the issues that they usually have is that they get dirty. Sometimes the wires break. Sometimes the glassware breaks. Things of that nature. So it's very important to be careful when you're assembling them, when you're cleaning them. That's the most delicate part of the instrument. The electronics themselves, they will work. They usually don't break. They last for years. And I think Loop has some of the older units that they had them for 20 years, and they were still working. So the only thing that they typically had to replace was the glassware. Some of the things that I saw when I came here on my first trip was that some of the way people put it together, it's slightly different than what we recommend, or maybe there was not enough information. But putting the glassware together and putting the chemicals it's very important. Another important thing is the cleaning of them, how to clean them. They need to be dry when you install them. Otherwise, the more moisture they absorb, the more it's going to take for the instrument to settle. So I'm going to begin by the basic step, which is assembling the glassware. And I'm going to explain why I'm doing certain steps. So the first step on your glassware is going to have your gen cell. You have your detector. So this detector all it does is it detects if there is water or no water. This is the eyes of the instrument. It tells them, okay, there is water, start titrating, start measurement. And there is a point where it's what we call dry point. And whenever it reaches that point, this tells the instrument to stop counting or to stop the count. So this is what this does. As you can see, there is two pins at the bottom. Some of the issues that we had in the past is that the steer bar will be going too fast and it will hit the pins and they will start touching together. When the two pins touch together, that shorts the detector and you're not going to detect anything. So that's something that can happen when you're cleaning them as well. If you hit it on the table or anything like that, if they touch, it's not going to work once you install it. So those are some of the little things that you need to watch before you install it. So the other part of this glassware is the cathode. This cathode, the job of this cathode is to titrate the water. With the chemical processes, well, basically in simple terms, it burns the water or it boils it. It gets rid of it. So every time you inject something, the water that it goes in there is basically chemically processed using electricity to get rid of that water. So we measure the amount of electricity that we use to get rid of that water, and that's how we get our measurement. So on this cathode, there is two meshes, one on the top and one on the bottom. One thing to look at when you clean this is to make sure that there's a little bit of space between the bottom mesh and the bottom white frit. You don't have to be a lot, just and make sure there is no things that are caught in between. Sometimes we had pieces of rubber septum, they get caught in there. Just every time you clean it, just make sure those are taken out. Typically, soap and hot water works really well. But if you're going to use water and soap, it takes a full day to dry. So if you do that, you have to have a backup that is already dry to swap them out. I'm sure you're familiar with all the parts that go with it. The injection port, your drying tube. So the very first step to do is to install the drying tube and your injection port. These don't require grease. You can add a little bit if it makes it easy for you to take it out, but it's Teflon and it should seal around the glassware. Okay, so the next step that we have on this is to add grease to the glassware components and have it ready before we even start doing the chemicals. And the reason for that is whenever we install this, we want to have a little film of grease just to keep that O-ring moist, and also so it doesn't stick. So once we put a thin film of grease, we can put this one in there. So once I put grease on that one, then it's ready to go. And before you also do it, make sure you have your stirrer there. So the first thing is to set up the glassware like this before you put any chemicals in. The next step is to have your cathode ready. So you're going to add a small amount of grease as well. You have your glassware ready, so the next step is just break your bottle open, and then you pour it in until it's completely empty. And immediately after you finish, you put your cathode in. The reason why I do it on these steps is because I avoid having the chemicals open for too long, and that avoids for them to absorb moisture. So that's going to result in your instrument being ready sooner. We were at this point where the only thing left was to put the seed solution, right?
Yes.
So we had put the seed. And here you use your funnel. You just break your ampule, pour all of it, and then immediately, as soon as you can, put the plug in. And you don't have to rush, but it's just the less time you take plugging everything in is the less moisture that can go in, and the sooner your instrument is going to be ready to work with. After doing it a few times, it just becomes nature. So it's not too difficult. So once you have your glassware, then you can put it in, connect it. You turn in your instrument. You put it to titrate. Yes, we put those red on red, black on black, and then you just let it run. The first time you change the chemicals, when I was here, I noticed that it took a very long time, and the bars didn't stabilize. So typically in other environments, it only takes between 30 minutes and an hour. But here it took way over an hour. So we put a recommendation to wait at least 2 hours, just to make sure that the instrument is ready, because otherwise you're going to be injecting check solution, and your results are not going to come in. Another thing that is very important when you're using this machine is the way you inject. And I don't know if I talked about this last time. These syringes are designed that where you measure 1 milliliter, all that it pushes, it's what's inside here. What's in the needle is supposed to stay on the needle. That's not part of the measurement. So if you go too fast, a momentum is going to carry some of the liquid that is on your needle. And if you do it at different paces every time, sometimes you might carry more from the needle, sometimes you will carry less, and that's going to produce different results. So one big recommendation is to, when you inject, just inject slowly. Then just let it run. Because if you do it too quick, some of the liquid that is supposed to stay on the needle usually goes, and in check solution that will affect you quite a bit. Um, and that if you do it slowly every time, you're gonna be a lot more repeatable. I've seen it. I mean, I did it for many years. I've done it fast. I've done it slow. If you do it slow, you're gonna repeat. You're gonna be very close to the same result every time. So it increases how repeatable you get. So that's one of the things that doesn't get talked about, but that's very important. I mean, you'll have my number. If you have any questions or any issues, I'm always available.